We'll be taking you through all 11 games, a ton of action. We're going to have to work fast. I'm Chris Spags, joined by the man whose brain will give you all of the information you need to win today, Fast Eddie Fear. Eddie, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm ready to talk some value plays. A lot of value on the slate, so I want to know where your head's at with it up front. What are you doing for value guys right away?
Well, there's obviously a pile on a slate of this size. I'm not seeing the tweet going out, so if someone could do me a favor who sees the live stream somewhere on Twitter, because I still don't see it, and it says we are streaming, so somebody tweet at me the show that I may then link the show to everyone else who is asking me where the hell I am, because whoever set up the auto tweet today didn't put my Twitter thing in it, so it didn't pop for me. So yeah, let's talk about value. It's a little different, obviously, on FanDuel and DraftKings. Just banging through some names on DraftKings with a brief explanation on each. I don't mind Maxi Kleber in tournaments. I don't mind Hoarder from the Hawks in tournaments. I don't mind Derrick Rose and hoping Wiggins sits out again. I don't think we've seen news on that.
He just got ruled out right before we started.
Wiggins is out.
Yep.
Okay. Then quite a bit of a fan of getting some Derrick Rose in there. That also puts Josh Okogie in there as the more tournament guy you're going to go at there. Certainly don't have an issue playing Danny Green at 4,400 on DK. Bit more of a cash play. Has shot over his head. At least twice this year I've made fun of playing Danny Green, but at a certain point you just have to look at the production and the price and take it for what it is. I love Eric Gordon to answer the person who asked the question. We'll get back to that, though. He's not quite value. I think it has been undersold how few Rockets are going to be available here. Rocket number 8 is Isaiah Hartenstein, I think. So, like, if you count him, they're dressing 8 dudes. So that's basically going to be MCW sliding into the starting lineup, and then Melo and Gerald Green off the bench. And then Hartenstein off the bench, unless Marquise Chris makes a triumphant return that we don't know about yet either, I don't think. But, yeah, they're going to run, that's really dense minutes. So I think you get 30 minutes out of Michael Carter-Williams, and it's hard for me not to like him at that price. He's minimum price on FanDuel if you're interested in punting a point guard. I think he's 38 on DK. So I like Michael Carter-Williams a lot. I like Derrick Rose a lot with that news. I like Gerald Green. That would just be tournaments. On DraftKings, I really like Wendell Carter, where he's still 4K. I think he continues to get minutes where he doesn't get in massive foul trouble. You can look at those Bulls guards. I would rather play Cam Payne than Blakeney or Archie Diacono. Got it down now. You know, Damian Jones is sort of the cashy guy you can go with on DK if you're, looking at a cash guy and that positionally works out for you, which might be a little more likely because center is not great tonight, which is weird because you have an 11-game slate with, all kinds of amazing plays I like, but usually center is a position I'm a little more loath to punt. There's really no centers in spots that I'm like, wow, this guy is, there's been days that have just been over the moon. I think Whiteside and Canner hurt each other more than they help each other. Sure, one of them can get there, but they're splitting a big number of rebounds, and I'm not over the moon with either of those guys. So punting at center makes some sense, or be it Damian Jones or Looney, where that's a possibility. That's a little more of a tournament play. I don't think I'm down to Jerebko yet. I think you can play Henson again. I mentioned him last night, and he did 17 or 20 minutes and had some 30 fantasy points. He's just a guy who can hit a tournament upside, just tournaments. You can Jeff Green again with Washington going so small. Jeff Green makes sense. Kelly Oubre makes sense, who's 4,200, 4,300. I think they're both actually pretty compelling tournament plays in a game that, like, half the games tonight has a ridiculous pace. Like, we have to recalibrate what fast is at this point. Because we're like, the slow game of the night with an over-under of 216, which is just bizarre to get into. And
the whole new world, to quote Aladdin. You can start singing it if you want.
Peebo Bryson. Yeah, I'll get all over that shit. Don't get me. I was doing for Halloween. I'm doing a pretty full Jack Skellington gig, and I've been known to like karaoke that entire musical from time to time. So like, don't.
Your dulcet tones would translate well, I presume.
I maybe after lock, if somebody asks me, I'll do some singing. So FanDuel specifically, I like Barea a lot in tournaments. The matchup is obviously pimp. He's also been scoring over his head, but even 22 minutes against this Hawks team can bear a lot of fruit. Setting 4,500 is my sort of bargain spot. So point guard, Barea, Rose, Michael Carter-Williams. If you need to, Cam Payne or Blakeney, but they would be behind those formative three for me. Shooting guard, Magruder at 4,500. I still have some interest in. Guys are the dudes are emerging. Justice Winslow is finding his way back into the rotation. That's going to limit it. A little bit on Magruder. Everyone's going to start ceding a minute here or there, but you can do that. Hoarder is another option there. We're not going to have news on Memphis, which sucks because the matchup is great, and if a few guys are out there, you'd suddenly have useful players there. So if you don't have Garrett Temple and if Dylan Brooks is out and Chandler Parsons is already out, I like Kyle Anderson a lot at $4,100 at that point versus the Kings. Like, I really like watching. That's a late game. I think they're in Sacramento, so I think that's like a 10 p.m. game. But arrange your DraftKings lineup so that you have the possibility to slot in some Wayne Selden or
Marshawn. Or Marshawn getting the Dylan Brooks minutes too would be nice.
Who getting those Dylan Brooks minutes?
Marshawn. I love Marshawn Brooks.
Oh yeah, Marshawn would be the other one. Marshawn. It would be Marshawn, Wayne Selden, and Kyle Anderson, who I think he's only played like 19 minutes a game so far. But against the Kings, they just signed him to $19 million a year, some stupid amount of money for Kyle Anderson. You have to think with all the other wings going out, he finally gets significant minutes. Maybe it's 25, maybe it's 28, maybe it's 33. It wouldn't shock me at this point that they give him some leash. No reason to think he's still injured at all, so that makes some sense to me. But that makes the shooting guard punts on FanDuel a little sticky. Small forward, Green and Uber from the Wizards. The other Green, by the way, if your guy JaMychal hadn't got his jaw broken, and I'm sure if it was 20 years ago, you could make some really bad joke about getting his jaw broken and how that happened. But instead, I'm just going to say, with your guy JaMychal getting his jaw broken, I cannot play my 5 green lineup. And I was excited about my 5 green lineup tonight. It would have been good, too. They all have merit to be played. I'm going to derail the show and not talk about anything useful to tell you that tonight you could have played Danny Green, 4,400. We're all about Danny Green. Gerald Green. One of 7 or 8 guys who's going to get appreciable minutes, only $3,500. Jeff Green, who we've already alluded to. And Draymond Green, who's down at 6,900. He works in a tournament. So fuck am I upset that I'm not playing tonight so that I'm not able to play 5x green lineup. And I blame JaMychal's jaw.
JaMychal's jaw is tearing us all apart.
That's a great name for like a band. I want to make a ska band called JaMychal's jaw now. Power forward, I think PJ Tucker's 4,500 on FanDuel, so he'll squeak into my somewhat arbitrary ranking system. But again, like 7-8 dudes gonna play, so he's gonna play 35 minutes. You're not thrilled with like yay Jazz, but come on Looney, Maxi Kleber again, and then at center, I don't mind Pau Gasol as a value play there. I can see that randomly working out in this spot, and obviously that's just tournaments. Damian Jones probably the center punt. Okay, I think I hit on most of the value. If there's someone I'm missing that you are particularly intrigued by, throw it in the QQ, tag my man Chris here, and we'll answer your question forthright with haste.
Yeah, I am paying attention, as we always are, to the premium Slack first and foremost, because that is the folks who are paying customers, but we are watching the YouTube chat as well. So anything relevant, we will get to. Also, make sure to drop us a like, because we are going to burn through this, and I won't have a chance to remind you now. Somebody disliked the video before we started, which I find pretty rude and personally hurtful.
We were late. I mean, we were late because the last show was late in French. You got to set up the whole thing and change the tweets and the stream and the hey now and the howdy do. But have people, hey, there, somebody tweeted it at me. Thanks. There's that, and retweet that. You are on. Thank you. Someone just tweeted me, you are on. I wasn't asking confirmation that I was on. I knew we were on. Never mind. Long story.
Well, give us a like real fast, but let's go game by game. Again, we're going to pay attention to everything up front, but let's start with a game which I think obviously is going to be a lot of fun. It is a matchup of prominent rookies, guys who were Sophie's choice in the draft with Dallas and Atlanta. I think this is a fantastic spot for both teams, especially Dallas. I think getting the pace up versus Atlanta, actually not a pace up rather, but getting a matchup versus Atlanta. No, my bad. It is a pace up. I'm misreading it. Just a good matchup for them.
Wicked fucking fast. Like through 4 games, people are overrating the pace anyway. People after like 3 games were like, the Jazz are the fastest team ever. I'm like, that is going to come down. Okay, and like right now, the Suns are between 22nd and 28th, depending on whatever list I look at, and the one on NBA.com. So somehow I got corrupt information. But the Suns are playing wicked slow. That's going to speed up. They won't finish bottom 3 in pace, but. Yes, wicked fast game. 235 over under, all the hotness and all the rookies. So yeah, I don't think I was the only one, but obviously Trae Young's price was going to come up. Beginning there, he was like 5,300. I'm like, that number is going to come up. He's not going to be great yet, but he's going to flirt with double-digit assists, and he's going to take 20 shots a game, and that number just has to come up. And shockingly, had a good game. That number came up. Still pretty appealing on DK. I like stacking this game. You can throw in Doncic next to Trae Young. If you don't play Trae Young and you're playing on DraftKings, I think the next most logical piece of this game to grab does end up being either Kent Bazemore or Taurean Prince. They're both significantly cheaper there. Bazemore literally on FanDuel is almost out of play for me, and on DK is a very, very strong play for me. Rankings are up, by the way, or should be. Someone scream if they aren't, but they should have been up some time ago. But Kent Bazemore at 5,300 on DK. Got 40 in the last game. Just tournaments for me. If he gets 30, 32 minutes again, he should be able to come out on top of that number in this matchup. Prince has lost time for various reasons not related to performance. I think he doesn't get 26, 27 minutes. I think he gets 31, 32 minutes here. I don't mind him on FanDuel or DraftKings. Definitely a place you can go. I don't think it's absolute insanity to play Alex Len in a tournament. Again, center is kind of weak, so you can try some fun things out here at the center position. He's still relatively cheap. Deadman is going to start futzing with his minutes, but they indicated that Deadman's only going to play about 15 minutes tonight. If that limits Alex Len to 33, which he wasn't going to get anyway, I'm fine with that. The rest of the bigs, I get a little nervous playing, like Alex Poitras still in this situation. And if I went cheap again, I would play Huerter over DeAndre Bembry. For this team,
coming for those Prince minutes. Huerter is. He's coming for those Prince minutes, it seems.
Yes, well, he's trying. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I think in close games, which hopefully this is fast and close will be. I like Dwight Powell a lot, especially on FanDuel at 4,700. In more difficult matchups than this one, he's played 3 games this year. He has played 16 or 17 minutes every game and scored 28 or 30 fantasy points every game. I think that is likely not going to continue. He is not going to average 1.7 fantasy points a minute for the entirety of the year. That's greater than Boban numbers, but still hasn't let you down yet through 3 games, and would seem odd that in this sort of cake matchup would be the spot where he certainly explodes. And I don't think the ownership is crazy, especially on a slate like this. So I like DP to do some damage. Again, we mentioned Kleber, that's just tournaments, but basically the same logic there. Barea, again, priced especially well on FanDuel, where he's 4,500. His price went down $400. Has been very productive this year, and even at 20 minutes has been playing at a pace where you'd like to think there's at least a tournament upside there. DeAndre Jordan is my cash center if I'm spending almost anything tonight. Whiteside and Cantor have not played against each other a ton. I went back and watched a reasonable amount of footage, and it's what you would expect. They both limit the other team's necessity to sort of jump in there and dump it down a lot, so they don't tend to take a pile of shots against each other. You tend to get 8 or 10 shots in games they start. They both tend to... they tend to fail to get the 10 rebounds against each other. But again, the minutes are going to be up for both of them more than we've seen in some of these recent games. If you look at a game where they both played 34 minutes, a couple of years ago, you got 19-8 and 12-8. 24-10, 5-12. But if you look at all the time they spend against each other on the court, it is a limiting factor for both of them. If I had to play one of them, I think I would play Enes Kanter. But again, center isn't great, so I think there is still a significant upside for Whiteside, who can pick up, 6 blocks, and especially if you're playing on FanDuel. So don't love either of those guys, but don't hate either of those guys. But DeAndre Jordan, I think is going to give you 16 and 18 tonight and some other stuff, and probably give you about 40. He doesn't tend to be a guy who throws up 50 burgers left and right. But it's worth pointing out in the last game he played against the Hawks, where he started against Edmond in January of last year, he had 25 and 18 with 2 assists and a block, and you can get a 50 out of him. So it seems less likely that he'll screw it up than either Whiteside or Cantor. So for cash, I'd probably play DeAndre Jordan at center if I'm paying any significant amount, because some uncertainty with you're spending 2 to 2.5 more to get all the way up to Embiid, who obviously against the Bucks could go absolutely nuts, and I think is just great in tournaments, and I probably prefer in tournaments to DeAndre Jordan. But played 38, 39 minutes last night. There's a chance they want to bring that down. I think Simmons does get out there. I don't know if we're 100% confirmed on that, but for all those reasons, I think DeAndre Jordan ends up in a pretty nice spot if you're paying up for center. Okogie is starting. Wiggins is out. Elon Wright has a minutes limit. Nothing particularly new there. Rondé Hollis Jefferson will have his minutes monitored. That's one of the most annoying statuses in the game when they do that for me. Like on normal nights, do you not look at their minutes? You're just like, oh, did we play Bob 48 minutes again? I wasn't monitoring. I thought you were monitoring today. That drives me crazy. Like, of course I'm monitoring his. Given that news, RHJ at 5,500 probably undoable. And yeah, okay, I guess I'm done with this game. That was too long again.
The one guy here I have the most of is Wesley Matthews. I like him a lot. He's been just shooting a ton. I think this matchup fits him well. Again, Atlanta not very good defensively and also giving up a ton of pace. I'm with you on Trae Young. I do have some Herter too. I think Herter, they do want him to take Prince's role, and I think they might want to deal Prince because he's been getting 25 minutes a game, and I don't think it's performance related because he actually has been looking good. So I think Herter is a guy who I wouldn't play a ton of. Obviously, he's super cheap and a rookie, but he is somebody worth noting. We're short on time, so let's just go to Brooklyn and Cleveland. Brooklyn getting a matchup where it's a pace up and pretty big efficiency difference here. Cleveland has been really bad defensively thus far. Cleveland as well, going against a Brooklyn team who's not very good defensively. All the usual guys here are in play. As Eddie mentioned, Rondé Hollis Jefferson is back in the lineup. That could hurt a little bit of Karis LeVert, but I think it would probably be more inclined to go to other things. Eddie, what are your notes on this game?
Yeah, not a ton of appeal for this game, certainly for me. As we mentioned, Rondé is going to be back. I imagine he plays 24, 26 minutes. I'll throw up a vague number of minutes he plays. I really like Kevin Love. I think you can play Kevin Love in, just about anything. He's especially underpriced on FanDuel, where I think he probably finds your way into your lineup as cash power forward, where he's particularly well priced. I like George Hill in tournaments. 54, 48 has done some good things to the Nets before, as many point guards have. Chetty Osman is just fine to play in anything on DraftKings. That's about it for me. You want to run Rodney Hood in a tournament? I think there's better guys on a slate this big. But if you're playing 150 and you have 3 Rodney Hoods, I don't mind. He's basically the same price as Jordan Clarkson and basically the same analysis. You can hope Larry Nance gets there. I think Jared Allen at 5,900 on DK does have the potential to smash the hell out of that. So that makes some sense in tournaments. LeVert is starting to price out his upside. He's a little bit under 7K on both sites. I'd probably project him for a hair north of 30, maybe 35. He could get 40, which makes you happy, but like 50 is really unlikely. But the matchup is good, so him in the tournament makes sense. D'Angelo Russell in the tournament makes sense, but not overall a ton of interest in this game at the slow pace of an over-under of only like 228, I'm sure.
Are you willing to go back to Chetty tonight? Because I like Chetty a lot, and I think people being disappointed by him last time, seems like an aberration game to me. I think he's more the 40-point scorer than a 25-point scorer based on his usage and just kind of what he does on the court.
Yeah, it's a fine matchup. They have a couple good guys to guard against him, but the minutes are there, the usage is there, and again, 58 on DK I'm a much bigger fan of than 69 on FanDuel, obviously, but yeah, I have absolutely no issues with you playing Chetty and anything. He's on the border of a cash play. Like he's certainly, I think he's pretty solid in there. I think the 40 was a slightly high aberration. There was some unsustainable shooting there for a bit, but yeah, Chetty, I would project tonight for north of 30. So for 5,800, I think that's a perfectly reasonable spot to target.
Let's talk about Minnesota and Toronto, a matchup where both teams actually been pretty decent defensively. Slight pace up for Toronto, but not one that's really noteworthy. As we discussed before, Andrew Wiggins is out now. Josh Okogie in a starting lineup. Derrick Rose coming off the bench. I think I don't know if that hurts his appeal to you, but I guess Eddie, tell us what you view on this game.
No, I still like Rose just as much starting as coming off the bench, maybe a little bit more. It doesn't appear to have any real limitation on his minutes. He can still play 30, 32 minutes off the bench, and we've seen that. And so it just generally helps his upside a little bit. So I would probably slightly prefer him coming off the bench. Derrick Rose is a strong tournament value play. On FanDuel, I'd now go there over JJ Barea. Not the the ideal matchup. Again, the over/under on this game was also just shy of 230, which is pretty funny because Minnesota is a fair amount dysfunctional, and Toronto is in the top 3 defenses in the league at this point, I think. But yeah, with Wiggins out, I would have a lot of interest in Teague in tournaments. I think he's 58 on DraftKings. That's he does more things. It just ends up getting a couple extra shots. You'd rather have Butler out than Wiggins, but it still does help him a little bit. So that's a spot to look at. I would rather play Kawhi than Butler, even at a slightly increased price. Went back and watched a couple times those guys have played. And again, they haven't stepped on a court together in almost 2 years. But I do think Kawhi is simply the better quantity there. You like having Wiggins out if they're Butler, and that makes me like Butler more. But still, in any sort of vacuum, I would still prefer Kawhi. I still don't want a Taj. Karl Anthony Towns has all the upside. He's only 8,200 on DK. You have to think there's a greater chance of a smash spot with Wiggins not there. So probably my order of interest in tournaments would be Rose, Teague, Towns, Butler. But yeah, I think those are all interesting. And Okogie, probably. I actually am a little more interested in Butler because the value tonight is a little specious, and where he's like 3,400, I want to say, has shown some sort of upside. So that's the Timberwolves for me.
And on the Timberwolves side, or actually on the Raptors side, let's just talk real fast too. Danny Green is a guy I think it's worth noting, and he's projected to be very low owned. People might still feel burned about the one day where he was kind of chalky, but he's played really well with Kawhi on the court, and his one down game was with Kawhi off. And they seem like they're playing well together. Like they're playing a lot of two-man game, and Danny's kind of dishing to Kawhi, and Kawhi's throwing back to threes to Danny. I like Danny Green a lot on the Toronto side. He's one of my favorite value plays on the slate. What do you think about the Toronto side?
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. We're 4,400 on DraftKings is just underpriced again. He's getting 30 plus minutes. So even where he's not the best fantasy player, first of all, we really like this matchup. Minnesota's been pretty abhorrent on defense. Second of all, let's assume he's just pretty bled and is giving you 0.8 fantasy points a minute. Well, that's 24 fantasy points at 30 minutes. So like it's almost more cashy for me because so many low inner things involved, such as GPP upside. But yeah, I've no issue with you playing Danny Green on anything on DK. On FanDuel, those shooting guard spots are actually a little more coveted to me. Let me bring my mic forward. I keep forgetting to do that at the start of the show. Like on FanDuel, I really want to play Devin Booker and Eric Gordon. It's really hard for me to play guys not named Eric Gordon and Devin Booker on FanDuel. So there it's a little tough. I'm assuming Danny is still there. But yeah, outside of that, big fan.
K-Shep in the premium Slack pointing out, by the way, Nene and Chris have been ruled out. Jabari is expected to play. And K-Shep is a guy who's pretty reliable, one of the regulars on the Slack. So there's a latest update on this.
Again, not to overstate this here, but for the Rockets, they're going to start MCW, Harden, Gordon, Tucker, and Capella. That's 5 guys. And the bench is going to be Gerald Green, Carmelo Anthony, Isaiah Hartenstein. Like, literally after that, it's...
Melton? Is Melton going to play?
Melton's on Phoenix, my friend. Melton is on
Phoenix.
Is it?
Oh, that's right.
It's Gray and Vince Edwards is on this team. But literally, they have 7 guys they want to play. 8 guys they will play. And Jazz are the fastest team in the league. Whatever. But so yeah, like I feel like that has not been brought up sufficiently. Like there's just not that many dudes there, and many of them, like Melo's 4,700. I don't want to play Carmelo Anthony. Nobody wants to play Carmelo Anthony. Guy's going to play 30 minutes tonight off the bench. He's going to take 16, 17 shots. Like, it's going to be hard for him not to get 20, 25 fantasy points, and he could make some shots for once. Now, it's obviously, like, the worst possible matchup for just, like, hi, I'm a step-back shooter, but he's certainly more in play than he's been any other day this year.
For Sooners 1010 in the premium Slack, would you rank the Rockets?
It's price dependent. I'm surprised someone hasn't asked me to rank the top 3 studs yet, because that's the most interesting issue on the night for me, because there's really strong positives and negatives for them. Rank the Rockets. The one just based on how much I would want to get them into tournaments, and my number 1 guy would be Eric Gordon. Then I got to take a second, because it ends up being site dependent, and there's obviously strong pivots off James Harden onto Giannis in a fine spot and LeBron in a fine spot. So that makes it really interesting. But I will generally say Gordon, Harden, Tucker, Michael, Carter, Williams, Melo, Capella, Gerald Green. I guess the order I would say just how good I feel about getting him out there. Like Eric Gordon is going to try really hard to screw this up. But it's going to be difficult. Like, he's just going to take a significant number of shots. He's the spot I would want to come at this Jazz team if I had to come at this Jazz team for some reason. And they'll focus on Harden, and I'm a pretty big fan of Eric Gordon. He's out on top for me.
I like Eric Gordon too. MCW, I think I like too. I'm surprised you're solo on Capella. Capella's done pretty well versus Gobert in a fair amount of matchups.
Yeah, sometimes, and obviously now I do think there's like the three people and you just said the same thing to me. Like, what the hell's your problem with Capella? I do think there is a significant floor there, I guess, is my answer to it. I think he's going to be fairly popular because I've heard a lot of people talk about it. And again, people had a viscerally negative reaction to me saying I wasn't sure it was going to work out. In their playoff series last year, which was 5 games, I think. You know, Capella had 2 good games and 1 okay game and 2 pretty shit games, if memory serves. And it's, you know, Gobert and Favors and Crowder and guys who aren't that. So the DK price is strong. So on DK, I would change those limits, for example. Like on FanDuel, Eric Gordon costs less than he does on DK, which is very few guys, a la Kevin Love, a la a couple other guys who I like extra on that site. For that reason, they are underpriced relative to everyone else. Not that DraftKings pricing is perfect, but generally when you get that discrepancy, it's worth noting. You know, and on FanDuel, Capella's like $8,000. On DK, he's 6,600, and center's pretty meek. So yeah, I have no issue if you have Capella anywhere there. I do think it is a big ceiling type floor situation, but he would probably be my number 3 after Gordon and Harden on DK for that reason. I was looking at FanDuel when I made the list, so that's why I was somewhat inaccurate for that. But there's obviously a real minutes upside. There's no one there to frickin' back him up, but PJ Tucker, who's also got to spend 30 minutes on the wings. So no issue with you playing Capella, especially on DK.
Since you said it, people now are asking in the premium Slack and the YouTube, rank your top 3 studs. Let's do this every day at the halfway point. That seems like a good time to do that.
Sure. It's not good that we're going game by game. We're 3 games in and at the halfway point, but moving on.
We're getting the relevant info out there, just in chunks.
This is tough for me. Smart. In tournaments, the player I want to play most of those 3 is James Harden. I think he is quite possibly the lowest owned of them. I'm not sure that's the case. He's the most expensive of them, which is going to bring down the ownership a little bit. And I think you do the best on ownership there, and there is a real ceiling there. The point of fact, the last time James Harden played the Jazz without Chris Paul, he had 80-something fantasy points. Just to prove that it is actually possible. That's what happened the last time this situation aligned like this. That, based on the ownership, it's definitely somewhat a volatile call. I'm lower on Giannis than others. I've heard a lot of people today quote, like, you know, power forwards versus the 76ers and yada. Yeah, that doesn't really apply there because they're talking about guys where Saric is generally guarding the power forward, and that doesn't happen here. Robert Covington guards Giannis basically every minute he's on the court, and does a adequate job at it, as much as anyone can do, guarding Giannis. So I like Giannis. I think Giannis is good for 53, 55, 56. Like, I put him in the mid-50s. He's fine. And if you ask me to average out Harden, I probably have him similar, but I think it's a little more likely you get uber game out of Harden. You know, people have said that the production is more concentrated on those guys. I disagree. I think Bledsoe, you know, picks up a ton of usage. I think Middleton picks up a ton of, like, I can really see those guys peeling away from that. So, yeah, I am, let me, like, run my DB query here, but generally I have this as being, like, a non. So, Giannis in games against the 76ers where he's guarded by Robert Covington. Last game he played 22 minutes. Oh, this was the end of the season game from last year. I remember this. I'm just going to ignore this. He had 10, 10, and 3 in 22 minutes, which isn't great, but we'll ignore that. Game before that, also last year, a month before in March, 35 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, and a block. That's a pretty good game. That's throwing up there, you know, near 60. That's a pretty strong game. One before that, 31, 18, and 6. That's a pretty strong game. One before that, 24, 8, 5, and 2 in 35 minutes. That one not so good. 17, 12, 5, and 4. That's pretty good. 23, 6, 2, 2, and 3. 14, 9, 7, 3, and 5. Steals and blocks came out really nicely. So, you know, there's a ceiling and a floor there, but none of these were in, like, the 80-point range. So I guess my point is, for tournaments, I would rather play James Harden because I think he's a little less popular. He's a little more expensive, which plays into that. And I think it's a little more likely he puts up 80. For James Harden, it's just there's no Chris Paul there. His numbers, his usage, his assist percentage, all this shit just goes through the roof. So if they have any sort of competitive game there, he's going to score 60. And very possibly you see numbers like 70, 80, 84, which is what he had the last time in the spot. So I slightly prefer him for that. In tournaments, I would rank them Harden, LeBron, Giannis as far as my desire to play them. As far as ranking them raw points, I think I would actually end up just like average amortizing it out, having LeBron barely on top, which feels weird after what we've seen this year, but I just think he's going to smash. So.
Yeah, and you should get some more assist upside too. I mean, Lonzo obviously takes some off the table, but LeBron was really distributing the ball pretty effectively last time out.
Oh yeah, when you take Rondo out of there, he's gonna be distributing like a madman.
Yep. Let's talk the Utah side of that game too. We'll keep trying to stick with the games thing, and if we end up deviating just the questions, it is what it is. But let's talk Utah real fast. What do you think on that guy's side? On those guys' side?
I think I'd like to play Donovan Mitchell, but he's just still too expensive. That price has to come down until I think we can reliably look at Donovan Mitchell. I like the matchup for him, but just where other guys are priced tonight, I can't get in playing him over Booker. I can't get him on DK where he's like 77 playing him under everyone else. I don't mind Rubio in tournaments. That's fine, but there's a very real giant upside there. Ingles has been amazing. Is still priced in the mid-sixes. Again, just tournaments for me. They're all tournaments for me. Gobert has not been really good against Capella. I would rather play DeAndre Jordan. Jay Crowder is priced really well. Again, especially on FanDuel where I think he's 200 less, but DK makes plenty of sense too. That's it. So basically, cash I'm playing no one. Tournaments, well, I guess you could play Jay Crowder. You could play Jay Crowder in cash on FanDuel at least. I'd let you get away with it. But then, probably favorite in tournaments, Rubio, then Ingles. Crowder too.
Since we just talked Houston, I might as well just do this quick either or for Airy Man in the premium chat because he's one of the regulars on Slack. Would you go Chetty or Gordon in cash? I'm going to assume your answer is Gordon.
Cash?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's certainly Gordon in tournaments. No doubt in my mind. Cash? I'd probably play Chetty. He just contributes in a few more ways. Gordon has to make a ton of shots. Like, it's really close. But on a slate this big, I feel less likely that it's really hard for Chetty to disappoint in this spot. I don't know. Be very close for me. I'd probably play Gordon, but it'd be very, very close for me. I'll say Gordon just because I think that's what I would do. But Chetty is not an insane idea in cash. Like, I would have him, Jared Jackson Jr. in the mid-fives. Like, there's just a lot of guys who have some uncertainty, but really have a big upside and are just underpriced on DK tonight, so they'd all be together. Nets are starting Russell, LeVert, Harris, Dudley, and Allen. So, Rondé Hollis Jefferson not starting. Minor boost for Russell and LeVert there, if you were looking at either of those guys. And even Jared Allen, because Rondé's going to pull down more rebounds than Dudley for their time adjacent to each other. So if you were looking at Nets, that's a lineup you're a little happier with.
Let's talk Charlotte, Chicago, because I do think Kemba is going to get a fair amount of ownership, or at least a decent amount. We've talked a lot about him at Osmo.com today. Oh, real fast one thing. Osmo is going to be on the live stream tomorrow. He won 200 grand yesterday on DK, so a lot of people wanted to have him on. So he'll be on with Eddie and Josh tomorrow at 6:15 Eastern talking about, guess what got him to win? Probably just a big old brain.
He played all guys I liked and Andre Drummond, and he still won.
Pussy boy Andre Drummond came through for 100K.
He did. It was all about Andre Drummond in that lineup, clearly.
Boy, what a dick.
Okay, so what an asshole. Charlotte and Chicago, again.
Kemba.
230 something. Yeah, it's hard to play anybody on that team but Kemba. I will say I like Nick Batum on DK. He's 5,500. Like, at a certain point, the over-under is 230, whatever. He's a guy who can triple-double. He's a grand less than he is on FanDuel. And again, on DK, you're getting double-double and triple-double bonuses. And they're terrible. And there's going to be holiday defense. And it's really hard not to look at that number. Outside of that, yeah, Kemba has just been a monster. Again, underpriced on FanDuel specifically. Same price FanDuel and DraftKings. But yeah, taking an average of 24 shots a game and playing all the minutes and doing all the things, and it's a great matchup. And there's almost no, I mean, and Chris Dunn is out, which would have presented some sort of hindrance, but they have no one there adequately suited to guard him. So yeah, really, really like Kemba. You can play Kemba in absolutely everything. Looking at the Bulls, you can still play Zach LaVine. That number has come up, obviously a grand or so. You're getting 7.5 about to pay for him, but has scored 30 points every game this year. That's pretty impressive. No reason that wouldn't continue. I think it's there's all the upside in the world for Bobby Portis. Obviously, Jabari is going to play, but still Portis has a 30 and 10 game in there. Would not surprise me at all that the matchup for him is actually really fine as well. So Outside of that, Justin Holiday still only 4,500 on DK. That's fine. You can run that out there in a tournament. You can do better in cash. And Wendell Carter Jr. at 4,000 on DK, I think is great in just about everything. I think he may have gotten a AA rating, which is not something I distribute a lot to guys who have not really had a good NBA game. But 4,000 is just too cheap for the pace, the matchup. Like, I'm not worried about Cody Zeller or Hernan Gomez. Like, I think he gets a double-double tonight.
Interesting. Yeah, he was close last time. So, I mean, this could be the night for him. Again, a very hospitable matchup, I think, versus Charlotte and the Zellers and Hernan Gomez's of the world. How about a very down total game, Indiana and San Antonio? Anybody here you're liking? Oladipo is a guy the deeper dive guys are talking about. I'm intrigued by him, too. I think this matchup could be better for him than it seems. But what do you think, Eddie?
I'm not surprised. I saw Lofty's tweet on Oladipo. He has an Oladipo rule, which is interesting how it's affected by the pricing changes and what's going on there. But yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with running Oladipo in tournaments on either site. By the way, it makes a very perfectly equitable pivot off of Devin Booker on FanDuel. Outside of Oladipo, I don't think I want to play anybody else on this Pacers team. You could do Tyreek Evans at 5,000 on FanDuel. Like, there is a ceiling to be had in that guy. Obviously, Spurs not the greatest matchup, but it's also not the horrid matchup it was for years. I mean, they lost a lot of very good defensive personnel. Like, when you get rid of Kawhi and put in DeMar DeRozan, you're going to play worse defense. So, but yeah, Oladipo, strong tournament play, pivot off other guys who I think are going to be more popular. You're going to get him at a really nice number and at a really nice price. So certainly no issue to go with that there. Again, my concern with Oladipo this year is the addition of Tyreek just sort of pulls something off Collison and Kojo and Oladipo, and like they all sort of are shedding to him a little bit. So I'm not sure that a rule established in previous years necessarily universally applies, but still 7,800 certainly can do. Looking at the Spurs, I will prefer LaMarcus Aldridge to DeMar DeRozan tonight, even at the expense. So I will pay the extra 600 on DK, 900 on FanDuel. I would rather play LaMarcus Aldridge in cash or tournaments at those numbers. I just think the defense on DeRozan will be significantly better, and they'll defer that way. I don't think we have a starting lineup yet. If Cunningham is starting again, you could do that again. Rudy Gay in tournaments, especially on DK, makes sense. 5,500, and I'm done.
Let's go Philly, Milwaukee. Ben Simmons is playing, I think, is the latest that I saw. That obviously hurts a lot of the guys here on this side, including TJ McConnell, who ended up being the play the other night. So there we go. But we do have a nice matchup here versus Milwaukee. What do you think about both sides?
Yeah, Simmons coming back sort of factors everything. Covington, and after watching a lot of that today, doesn't tend to do well against the Bucks. He's super focused on guarding one guy on that side of the court. I think Simmons coming back is a very compelling tournament play, especially on DraftKings at $9,400. He's not going to be owned, and he's still triple-double guy at $9,400. And so the guy I would want to play most on the 76ers right now for me would be Ben Simmons, tournaments only, obviously, but that would be very compelling for me. There's obviously nothing wrong with playing Giannis in anything whatsoever, period. No matter what I might think about, the matchup and the volatility, he's probably, you could argue, I don't know. For cash, it's really interesting too. But point being, he's projected right up there. I'm sure there's infinite you can read about him. I won't go any further. Middleton a little too cheap on FanDuel, where he's only 76. Bledsoe now costs more there. So there, I would certainly prefer Middleton. But at the discount on DK, I would slightly prefer Bledsoe. But they're still both perfectly compelling tournament plays for me, although they both take a hit with Simmons back in there. You can still bro low in tournaments at 4,600. You could still Ersan Ilyasova in tournaments, and I actually legit still like John Henson in tournaments. Looks like they're going to keep giving him 18-20 minutes. He can pick up a pretty massive upside in that time. He's 3,700 on DK. I like him legit in tournaments. And done.
Lakers, Phoenix. We talked a little bit about this one, but some value on the Lakers side with Ingram and Rondo still out. Phoenix, is Phoenix. What do you think about both sides?
Fred VanVleet is out. Delon Wright has limited minutes. So it's difficult to discern exactly what this is going to do. You can spin this into a couple extra minutes for Lowry, and you can spin it into a couple extra minutes for Danny Green. So you should feel a little better about your Danny Green investment is the big takeaway.
I'm ready. Me and Danny going off the cliff like Thelma and Louise.
There you go. Just keep driving, Chris. We're on what game are we talking about?
We are on LA Phoenix.
Woo! Yeah, excitement. So again, yeah, Devin Booker on on FanDuel is just too cheap. I would have a ton of exposure there. That's obviously not a hot take, but even the DK price is perfectly exciting. You can certainly do that. I'm still not playing Isaiah Cannon. Don't try to make me. You can play Trevor Ariza in tournaments at 4,900, especially on DK. That's pretty exciting for me. I love DeAndre Ayton. I think he gets you 40 here. I think he's a better cash center than anyone but maybe DeAndre Jordan. May all your cash centers be DeAndres. There you go. That's the easiest way to explain that. No, I'm not going to Ryan Anderson. Don't think I'm going to Josh Jackson, although if you're building the blowout line, that would be part of it. You can still TJ Warren at 4,800 on DK. Looking at the Lake Show, Kuzma obviously went nuts and got a big price raise. I'm perfectly fine with doing it in cash. I'm perfectly fine with doing it in tournaments. I would try to go other places just because I expect him to be a little more popular than I would like him to be. Like, I would rather play, even in this game, Josh Hart. I would rather play Lonzo. But certainly not going to object to you playing Kuzma in any format. And LeBron we've discussed extensively. I won't do that again. And don't sleep on JaVale McGee at 5,300 on DK. Again, not a lot of centers I love. And he's just been smashing.
Yeah, and no bigs out on the Lakers are going to do anything against Ayton either. So McGee's the best shot they'll have. Yeah. Memphis and Sacramento, we got 2 games left. We're going to do it. What do you think about this side? Gary Temple, still a question that a lot of people are asking about. A lot of Gary Temple love tonight, apparently, for people just dying to play him on a questionable groin. But obviously, it's a pace-up matchup versus Sacramento. He's been playing at the fastest pace in the league, give or take. What do you think about both these sides?
Yeah, I like just about everyone for Memphis. I would say, oddly, probably, well, all right, so Garrett Temple we're not sure is going to play. That's obviously sticky. I really like Kyle Anderson in tournaments right now. With what we know at $4,100, both sides, I like Kyle Anderson in a tremendous matchup at $4,100. There's obviously some risk. They have somewhat unexplainably given him 19 minutes a game thus far. I would expect him to see 28 minutes tonight. That's about my best guess for minutes, but I don't really know. So, but if he plays 28 minutes, I'd expect him for, near 28 fantasy points against the Kings, and that's just a little too exciting, and nobody's going to own him. Jaren Jackson is obviously going to be somewhat chalky on DK, or at least somewhat owned on DK. They brought the price on FanDuel down 300. This is a pretty tremendous matchup for Triple J there, and he can hit all the tournament upside. So love him in tournaments. He's even close to DK cash playable. Willie Cauley-Stein does a halfway decent job against Marc Gasol. Watched a little bit of that today. Any mention of Winslow? No, don't play Justice Winslow in his first game back. I mean, it's a cute matchup, but I'd be surprised if you randomly get 26 minutes of Justice Winslow, and on a slate this big, I don't think you want to mess around with 18 or 20 or 22. So Justice Winslow is relevant only to the fact that he kind of screws up Magruder and takes a couple minutes off Josh Richardson and just sort of derfs everyone else a little bit. But yeah, I wouldn't look specifically at that. I like Conley, especially at that DK price. Had a shit game, then a decent game, then legitimately a very good game. He's still 6,700 there. Nobody on Sacramento is going to stop him if he decides he wants to have a game. Like, I like Conley well more than Marc Gasol in this matchup if you're going to go there. And especially where you can late swap, try to arrange your lineup so that you can swap in Garrett Temple if he's confirmed in and starting, because I would really like him in this spot. Or if he is out and Brooks is out, play Marshawn Brooks. Make sure you play Marshawn and not Dillon if Dillon isn't playing. Because Dillon was questionable, then out, then a game time decision. Now he's questionable again, I think is the most recent bit of news there. But yeah, so there we go. I guess that's that for that.
A lot of hemming and hawing over Dillon Brooks, but not a guy who really is going to affect things too much on an actual level. But yeah, a lot of good value there if he doesn't play. So keep an eye on that, especially on DK, obviously. Last game, Washington Golden State. Then we will speed round a bunch of questions. Give me your thoughts on this one. I think it could be a very overlooked spot tonight, especially for Durant and Draymond Green. But what do you think?
I love the ownership you're going to get Durant and Steph at. Steph is also too cheap on FanDuel. Steph is like 9,700 on DK. He's 9,300 on FanDuel. That's a little bit too cheap. And he and John Wall frequently go fireworks against each other. It is a spot in which you see those guys doing some very, very real damage. So I have certainly a non-zero amount of interest in mostly Steph and Durant. If Clay had been out, which was rumored to be a possibility for some time, I would have had really quite a bit of interest in those guys at what I expect to be a low ownership, but them hanging around in the 10K price range and all those amazing players at 11 who have just more like you don't really get 75 out of Steph and Durant. Doesn't happen that much. All those other guys do it a half dozen times a year, so they are understandably not prioritized for tournament people, but it's still really exciting to get Steph at 4% and Durant at 3%. Two of the other guys.
One thing that jumps out to me too, I would watch the rebounding in the Golden State side. Washington's been like egregiously bad rebounding, which is not surprising.
They have nobody. I mean, they're gonna have Markieff spending most of the damn game at center. Looking at that situation, I like Markieff Morris a lot in tournaments. I think that's certainly something you can do. I like Jeff Green a lot in tournaments, less than MCW by a little bit, but certainly someone I would keep my mind on. And John Wall at 8,600 on DK. Frequently goes absolutely savage against Steph Curry. Like, he has multiple 18 assist games and 40 real point games, and it's a bit frenetic, and you can't necessarily count on it. But at the ownership, I'm pretty excited at $8,600 John Wall.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. All right, let's speed round through some stuff. One guy I don't think we talked about, at least in any depth, that people have asked a ton about. He should at least have some buzz on him. Damian Dotson on the Knicks. Picked up some minutes last time out. What would you do with him? Obviously very cheap on DK, and I presume on FanDuel as well.
I'd play Mario Hezonja if for some reason I needed to go look at that spot in that game. Like, I get the theory. I'm not going back to the well on a popular Damian Dotson. Like, I totally understand why people are thinking it. I don't think it's particularly a bad play, but I've been asked about Damian Dotson 7 times today, and that's enough to make me think, okay, well, I've seen Damian Dotson play basketball 100 some odd times, and if this many people are interested in him and there's an 11-game slate, I'm just going to do something else. So for me, I wouldn't play Damian Dotson. You can at me later. Maybe he'll be outstanding. Not overly concerned with that happening.
I don't mind him as much as that, but I think overall, there's so much value on the slate. Like, I think there's too many plays between the 3,500 to 5,500 range that look really good and have steady minutes and steady usage and all that. And I think it seems people going there, I think, are trying to get a little too cute when there's so much value on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple games in the preseason where he somewhat randomly, I will throw the term out there, produced. I'm not like, oh, Damian Dotson, that's the worst thing you could possibly do. I just think there's a real chance to disappointment. I would rather play Horter at a quarter of the ownership, or I would rather play other guys who I project similarly will just be lower owned. I don't want a Damian Dotson in cash. I don't think that's reasonable. And in tournaments, I'm gonna look somewhere else.
For Hobo Joe in this premium Slack, which great name, Melo or Crowder, who would you go with?
Yeah, I would probably play Crowder in cash and Melo in a tournament between those two guys.
All right, we'll burn through these. TAC 1998. Would you go Embiid or Giannis?
Giannis.
Cat and MCW or Trey and Bagley for a DK GPP?
Trey and Bagley.
Does Jared Allen come off the floor if Love goes to the 5? No, I would say if anything, I think that keeps Jared Allen on the floor. But what do you think?
They won't run that small, but make sure Kevin Love feel even better, where you've now got just preposterous rebounding equity in Kevin Love, who's gonna, like, if they take Jared Allen off the floor, Kevin Love's gonna have 26 rebounds, and that'll be pretty exciting too. So
is Ed Davis gonna chase him around the arc too? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think they do that even with him at the 5. But it's your brain is in the right place asking the question. But no, I think Jared Allen still gets his 28 to 32 minutes. Like, could he seed a minute or two? Yes. I wouldn't be super worried about playing him in tournaments because of this potential eventuality.
Jaren Jackson Jr. or Nicholas Batum, which of them has more raw fantasy points?
Really similar spots, actually.
I would go Jackson.
I will take Jackson.
Yeah, I like that spot for him, especially coming off of a game where he disappointed at some degree of ownership. That's kind of that's where I want to be.
No, I think your logic is solid.
Case Shep asking, would you go Tristan Thompson or JaVale McGee?
JaVale McGee.
JaVale for me too. Herder or Okogie for a GPP?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I wanted to look up. Okogie is 3,400. That's what I thought he was. Off the top of my head. It'll be really close. The ownership will be fairly similar. I'll stick with Herder, but very, 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 very close.
Any Sabonis love at 4.9K on Indy on FanDuel? Those minutes seem like they're getting crushed by O'Quinn and Turner, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he was not totally healthy last year, and they're asking on FanDuel, DK, he's still closer to 6K. I don't have a problem with it in a tournament. He can be an incredibly efficient point per minute guy. Like, he can absolutely crush faces. So I'm okay with that.
Is Rose okay for cash?
Yes.
Let's see. Would you go Trey and Bagley or Cat and MCW?
It's really close, but I'll stick with Trey and Bagley. I don't mind either of those at all in tournaments. Like, those are some pretty exciting duos for me. I like playing all those guys in tournaments, but
I'd go Cat MCW in tournaments because Trey and Bagley both coming off big games. Cat not. Cat very cheap on DK.
No, you're gonna do better on the ownership there. I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Do you think Lowry gets a minutes bump with no Van Vliet?
Yes, not massive, but yes, I do think that's likely with no Van Vliet and a limited Delon Wright. I think he might stay out on the court a couple extra minutes. I think it's more likely than not. Not necessarily, but it would not shock me in any way.
Rose or Danny Green for a DK GPP?
Take Danny Green.
Curry, Wall, Tyreek, or Young, Simmons, and Covington?
Curry, Wall, Tyreek. Let's stack it up and play it that way if I had to play one of those in a tournament.
Capella, Osman, or Jaren Jackson Jr. in cash?
Well, I mean, Capella, if they're all priced the same. I thought Capella was like 800, 1,000 more, but if those guys, I would project Capella for the best there in cash. So Capella.
Going Osman. Payne or MCW on FanDuel?
MCW.
Kelly Olynyk starting instead of Derek Jones, who's out tonight, by the way. That news just came down. So.
Interesting. Let's check a price on Kelly. I think he's like 39 on FanDuel. He's 49 on DK. I'm still not terribly inclined towards that, especially with Winslow back. But definitely some Kelly tournament exposure on FanDuel makes a lot of sense.
That just feels like a spot where he wins a tournament tonight, being put in the lineup last minute like that.
Yep. About 90 seconds to go or something.
Ugh, I hate you, Kelly Olynyk, so much.
He is 3,900 on FanDuel.
I actually have a very inappropriate Kelly Olynyk story, which I will share after when we go
post-lock for inappropriate Kelly Olynyk stories, but I'm excited to hear it based on
that. Teague, Gordon, or Lonzo, price doesn't matter for cash.
Teague.
Center under 4,500, no site given.
With no site given, I can't do anything with that information, unfortunately.
Yeah, that seems fair. Let's see. Lonzo or Russell for the YouTube chat.
I'll take Lonzo, but I don't mind Russell, but I will take Lonzo.
Re-up in the premium Slack. Is Jimmy a must-play in cash on the express slate for FanDuel?
I don't know offhand what games are consumed in that, so don't know that offhand. Sorry.
Yeah, I feel like Jimmy's not a cash play today quite so much, but that's me. Levine or Booker for FanDuel cash?
Booker.
Let's see. Anything else good? Nobody else in the premium Slack. All right. I think we did a good enough job answering all those questions, but obviously if you have any more, drop them in. We are officially in the post-lock show now, so we'll do a little daddy like. We'll see what daddy likes with the ship.
That's so
Can't
creepy.
say that.
Yeah, it was not my intention to be creepy, dude. With I blame Kawhi Eisenberg because it sounded great when he brought it up. He's like, you should just call it Daddy Like. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And then like when it happens, I'm like, yeah, Daddy likes Luka Doncic, and it just sounds like it doesn't sound good. It doesn't come over well, but that's what you got.
I enjoy it.
Gotta build around my brand.
Really creepy, but that only makes me like it more, to be honest.
I gotta build around my pedo bear brand. That's perfect.
So what does Daddy like? The ownership is trickling down now. Let's see if there's any. Oh, Eric Gordon in Covington or Josh Richardson in
down.
Oh, never mind. I forgot that game started. All right, well, never mind. Thought I got a question I missed.
Jesus. Okay. How many 7 p.m. games were there? I'll just go look at ownership.
I don't even have that.
All right, I'm loading up some ownership. Trey 21%, Luka 13%. Pretty excited about that. I prefer Luka, so that's I'm excited about that for your Luka ownership. Just does more things than Trey, and his matchup is better than Trey's. So and is $100 cheaper. So I'm pretty exciting to get Luka at So, yeah, number 1 was Trae Young, 21%. Number 2 is Kevin Love, 20. Chetty Osman, 19. Luka Doncic, 13, which feels great. Daddy Like. There you go. Torian Prince at 11, Daddy Like. Wesley Matthews at 9.5 is about appropriate. D'Angelo Russell at 6, Daddy Like. Jared Allen at 5.5. Good. Kent Bazemore at 5.3, which is his price also. I like. Karis LeVert at 5.3. Dorian Finney-Smith at 5.3 is an affront to mathematics and basketball. The hell are you people doing on a slate of this size? Sorry. I'm over it. I know the matchup, but Jiminy Chris. Okay, sorry. DeAndre Jordan, 4%, Daddy Love. Like, I would have him projected as at worst my 3rd highest scoring center of the night. Now, on DK, it's a little less relevant than FanDuel because you don't really need to play a center per se, whereas on FanDuel, there's just merit to being like, you know, if DeAndre Ayton scores the most fantasy points at center and you have him, you are ahead or tied with everyone after reckoning the center position. It's not quite how it works on DK because of utility and all that shit. But still, 4% for DeAndre Jordan. People are too used to occasionally getting like 6.8K DeAndre Jordan, and they just don't like paying up there, but feels weird. Rondé Hollis Jefferson, 3%. Okay. Dwight Powell, 3%. Daddy Like. Dennis Smith Jr., 2.7. Daddy Like. JJ Barea, 1.8. Daddy Like. Kevin Huerter, 1 2/3. Daddy Like. And hold on. Let's see if somebody played themselves. I'm looking. Alright. I'm looking. I'm like Maxi Kleber, 0.3. Daddy Like. Harrison Barnes, 0.13. Congratulations, you played yourself. There we go.
There we go. Got one in there.
Got one.
B. Schwarz in the premium Slack asking to do this for FanDuel next. People, the Daddy Like really catching a lot of fire across the viewership.
I think it's just because it makes me obviously viscerally uncomfortable. Like I'm, you know, and people who've been unfortunate enough or desperate or lonely enough to follow me for several years will know there's not many subjects that make me uncomfortable. Like I've gone pretty deep into a number of subjects that aren't necessarily comfortable for most people. But yeah, Daddy Like is I'm struggling with. So let's see if I can. I will just poke through some FanDuel lineups because I don't think yes, I did successfully log in. The 444K clutch shot. Let's see. So Kevin Love, 32%. That's pretty good. Dwight Powell, 6%. Daddy Like. Get right on record there, Daddy Like. 6% there. Wesley Matthews, 5%. Daddy Like. D'Angelo Russell, 3.5%. Daddy Like.
Brandon C, we want an hour of Daddy Likes every day.
Kevin Huerter, 0.6%. Daddy Like Kevin Huerter. He's young and talented. See, like, it's just nothing you can say comes out good at
Daddy
all.
Likes him young and talented.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
right, exactly. It's just terrible. JJ
and he's a redhead too, so he's like got a little bit of a self-esteem issue thing.
JJ, I mean Blake Griffin. That's why it took him so long. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
JJ Barea, 6%. Daddy Like. Tristan Thompson, 7.5%. He's got enough sexual proclivities. Daddy doesn't need to like him. Trae Young, 17%. 7,800 on FanDuel. Luka Doncic is 5%. Daddy Like. He's 8,300. Daddy doesn't like 8,300, but Daddy likes Luka Doncic. He's got like a peachy complexion and looks like he's
very
got
fresh.
tips.
A little too tatted up for me for my European ball handlers, but
yeah, I mean he's got that he's halfway between like an Iowa farm boy and someone would be working the flogger in a German sex dungeon. Like there's a lot going there. He's black and white. He's multiple personalities. It's a role playing thing. He's doing good. Man, people put I always run into these lineups where someone puts in like 20 copies of the same lineup, which I don't think there was overlay. Let me check. No. So I don't get that. Like it's like I put in 20 copies of my lineup with, you know, Hoarder in it or something. It's like, wow, that's some confidence in Hoarder that I would not have had. More Kevin Love, 32% again. That makes a lot of sense. I'm looking for other people in this game. Sorry, I have to.
Not ours.
I have to hunt and peck. Dorian Finney-Smith, 6.5%. You poor bastards.
He's been playing well in a pace up.
Well is
by Dorian Finney-Smith standards.
Yeah. Oh, sure. But it's just an 11-game slate. You're not gonna like. True. I guess he had the 3-block game, which allowed him to get up to 26 or something in an excellent matchup. But I just don't know how you play someone who literally has seen 30 fantasy points twice in 180 career games or something. I don't know. I have an irrational hatred, much like you have an irrational love for Stanley Johnson. I have a deep-seated need. How does Daddy feel about Jeff Teague DK tournament? Daddy likes Jeff Teague DK tournament a lot. 5,800. Oh, man, Daddy like.
For our guy California Cool in the premium Slack, just one last either or Wendell Carter or Kyle Anderson for a GPP.
What a great question. Jeez. I'd play Kyle Anderson. I'd play them both if I could. But last spot, yeah, get KA in there, man. Like, especially on like the late slates and stuff. He's gonna be. I mean, the full slate, ownership on Eric Gordon will be too low. But like the late slates last game where Chris Paul was out, and I was looking at like a 3-game late slate, and he was like 24% owned. I'm like, what in the hell are you doing? Like, crazy. I had no idea how that possibly was going to happen. Which is weird. Again, most of the year I keep seeing what looks like a very educated populace when either James Harden or Chris Paul is out, Eric Gordon becomes a fairly reputable fantasy quantity who averages, in the low 30s in fantasy points a game, and he was like 5,300 and like 20% owned on a 3-game slate. Now, I don't know how that happens.
That's crazy. You got the NBA Wowie style correlations. You really got to file away in your brain pretty top there, because being able to reference those fast. I mean, like I knew that too. The second you were like Eric Gordon, you're like, yep, Eric Gordon, Gerald Green gets bumped up. That's just the Rockets. That's just how they do it. It's totem pole.
Yeah, we've had a lot of interesting conversations recently in the premium Slack chat about the predominance of projections and exactly how to best use them and when. And one of the things I've said is that one of the limitations is frequently people who are heavily reliant on mass multi-entering and projections to do so don't have the best plans for late swappery. Like at best they're like guy out, guy in. Like it's a little more, oh, okay, this guy and should like it just. Which is sort of more of a take on entering a ton of lineups as opposed to necessarily using projections to do so. Because single lineup users, there's not a lot of advantages, but one of them is you're a lot less fucked when things go sideways at 657, and even more so, you can capitalize it on a lot more. So if I have one lineup and at 657, let's say it wasn't Fred VanVleet went out, let's say it was Kyle Lowry went out today. Now it's like, oh shit, so I've got to, I turn that into a lot of Kemba. Like you can do a straight swap on some of that, but there's also like, oh, okay, now I'm really interested in Fred VanVleet. We'll say if he wasn't necessarily injured and my projection for Kawhi goes up, and you could really fine tune your one lineup so that you can take advantage of that news in 100% of your exposure. You can't do that if you have 150 lineups. Some do it better or worse, but no one's able to do any sort of significant massaging. So, But that also means that, with late swap coming back, it's better to MME than it was before. Like there's a balance between massive multi-entering and building a best lineup and playing it on a lot of sites and contest selection and everything that entails. Bring late swap back makes mass multi-entering a lot better because you have time post-lock to fix shit if it goes sideways.
Yeah, I agree. I think that makes sense. One question that might be relevant for a lot of people, which Michael L in the YouTube chat is asking, and this will be the last one. I'll tell my Kelly Olynyk story and we'll call it a wrap. Cool. Michael L, who do I go to if Temple sits? Who would be your pivots?
Well, you're going to want to go generally with the starter. So what sucks is that Shelvin Mack is around too, and Shelvin Mack has gotten one of many guys in the league, but especially on Sacramento and Memphis most specifically, inordinate amount of minutes relative to guys who are younger and better at playing basketball. So you end up in this weird situation where, Shelvin Mack could randomly pick up 30 minutes again next to Mike Conley and backing him up. That being said, if we find out Garrett Temple is out and Dylan Brooks is out for the purpose of this conversation, Kyle Anderson is still my number one guy. My number two guy is probably going to be Wayne Selden over Marshawn Brooks, but that would be very close for me. I assume they would start Selden and Anderson at the 2 and the 3. It's also worth pointing out that it's not a bad idea at this point to also increase your exposure a little bit to guys like Jaren Jackson Jr. and Conley, who are going to be looking at a little bit increased minutes, a little bit increased usage. So the other Grizzlies on the court as well would get some love. But right now, with what we know at 7-11, I would go with, first of all, I'd go with a big gulp or a Slurpee. But then I'd go with Kyle Anderson, and then probably, if the lineup is what I expect, Selden starting, I would take Selden over Marshawn Brooks.
Okay. And all right, so let's talk Kelly Olynyk real fast. I'll bang through the story. It is a story which I can confirm with a firsthand source who told me about it. Obviously, Kelly Olynyk was on the Celtics. I used to work for Barstool Sports, which is a very prominent company in Boston as well. So I picked up a lot of gossip both through the people I work with. I've heard
of them, but my real question would be, how come you're not a completely misogynistic, toxic dick? Like,
well,
I didn't pick that up out of you. I read your thing, and he's like, he worked at Barstool. I'm like, really? He doesn't seem like a douchebag. I would not have guessed that. So you do a very good job of hiding your douchebaggery.
Most of the employees there are not that. The guy who is the main guy there is a bit of a douche who I have some personal things with. But it's a different company, but it's an interesting one. How can you confirm a story someone else told you? Because this person is a woman who is involved in the story. Anyway, she had been intimate with Kelly Olynyk. She's part of a group of girls in Boston. A lot of girls in Boston are very friendly with athletes. There are men who, this sounds really bad explaining it out loud, there are men who sort of are middlemen for parties for athletes and stuff, including guys who are coming into town, like when Mike Napoli would come back in. They would like set up a party with all the Rangers and whatever. And basically, like, these girls in Boston go out and they go knowing there's going to be a bunch of athletes there, and they go and hang out. One of those parties happened. This girl met up with Kelly Olynyk. Obviously, they were vibing a little. Kelly is a lovely gentleman. And Kelly brought her back to an apartment with a girl who I was seeing. They were roommates or whatever, at least staying together. And Kelly and her made tender love. Kelly is a large man. Kelly split her in half, literally to the point where she was bleeding all over the bed. And his response was, "Do you want me to get you like a paper towel or something?" And then he left. And this is, it could not be a more real story. Could not be a more real story.
Yeah, I didn't think severe vaginal lacerations were on the menu for tonight's show, but
no, she had to go to the hospital and get stitched up like a pregnant woman.
Okay, so Kelly Olynyk is packing heat. There you go. I'll add him to my Eric Decker list of professional athletes I know are packing heat. I've been to a party in Boston with Johnny Damon back in the day, and
I'm sure he's not packing that Kelly Olynyk baseball bat, but he's.
Oh no, I wouldn't think so. Wiffle ball perhaps, but
yeah. So there you go. That's Kelly. And now whenever I see him like crush me in a tournament, I'm like, oh, you big dick bastard! What are you doing to me this time?
Yeah, that makes me feel better for him, because previously I was like, I feel bad for him. He's sliding out of that rotation pretty quick, although obviously he's getting an opportunity here. But on the plus side, he does have a big dick, so he's got that going for him, which is apparently maybe at the level where it's inconveniently large. Like, there is too much of a good thing.
T-Big in the YouTube chat, you tell that story like we all haven't been there. Of course, everybody, the hope is that you would, be a little more charitable to the woman and wouldn't just give her a towel and walk.
I cannot, don't get me wrong, professional athletes are entitled, and certainly he does have the hair of a Norse god, but yes, you would think you would be somewhat more. I don't know. I was never the biggest fan of the whole hit it and quit it scene, but yeah, that's alternatingly terrifying and humorous and unsurprising.
But I'm sure that's the first time that story has left Boston, because Boston people are very protectful of their stuff.
Here you go. This is gonna be like this is sort of like the story with Yeah Jeets. You have to know that one if you worked at.
Yes, of course, and the gift baskets and the declaring that during
so
oral.
Apparently, when Derek Jeter would get his frequent hookups, at the end of the day, like, he had a pre-made like gift basket that you got. Like, it was something that happened frequently enough where he had he'd made 20 of these and they're in a closet. He's like, here's your basket, and it was But also apparently, upon receiving fellatio, he liked to frequently sort of encourage himself, most frequently with the admonition of "Yeah, Jeets." Which I've tried. I was getting a blowjob the other day, and I started saying "Yeah, Jeets," and it didn't do anything for me other than get me some pretty humorous looks. Because
I don't doubt that. Sure 1.6 in the premium Slack specs the Boston Stitch. I'm not a Boston guy. I just happen to have gone out with a fair amount of ladies who are in the Boston area, and you pick up some gossip. But Boston's an interesting place.
I had a guy. One of my first game design projects was on a couple collectible card games for Marvel and DC Comics, and another one for the World of Warcraft. And while I was working on these games, there was a guy on the team named Anthony Shaheen. Shout out Anthony Shaheen, who was from Boston and had a severe Boston accent. And we were working on the same team for several days until I understood that every time he was trying to say card, he was saying CAD. And it just blew my mind for like a week. I was like, the hell is he? What's a CAD? Is it like, are we using computer aided design? I don't know what's going on here. Like, I was like, oh no, he just doesn't have a letter R. Okay, no, I got it. But that's just what came to mind when I think of Boston, is that guy saying CAD like 81 times a day for 6 months can quickly drive you insane.
It's a tough accent. Baltimore is still my least favorite accent by far, though. Baltimore's accent. Yeah.
You're not from Baltimore if you pronounce the T. Baltimore.
Baltimore. The only one I liked was a Snoop on The Wire when she did it. I like that Baltimore accent. Everybody else goes through.
Strong. Anything from The Wire is by definition good. But that's
there we go. And we are white men saying that, so that is the demographic who would say that so actively on a live stream. We love The Wire. Yeah. Kelly Olynyk's dick in The Wire. What else are you getting here? That's it for today's show. We covered enough. We appreciate you guys watching, sticking with us. The post shows are fun. We get a little loose here. Obviously, a lot of things we have to get to during the main.
Loose enough that we don't have to go to the hospital and get sewn up afterwards.
We will have to restitch the show for tomorrow. Again, the boss man Osimo will be back. It'll be Josh hosting with Eddie tomorrow. But Osimo will be here at 6:15 Eastern, breaking down his lineups. Use the promo code, by the way, if you're on. I assume you probably have like a membership by this point. If you don't, Live Before Lock, the promo code right there. I guess it's not right there on our video, but it's right there in my mouth. Live Before Lock will get you 1 week free. You can get all the late slate ownership projections, which will help you get ahead of the field. So go check that out now. It'll be helpful. Any parting words, Eddie, before we go wrap it up?
No, I'm terrified beyond the capacity for rational thought, Venkman.
There we go. That's where I want you to be at the end of these shows. But we appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Give us a like and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon. Good luck.
See, I almost did it again. I have to stop the stream.
No, we got it. I mean, look, it can't get worse than you getting blown and me telling stories about girls' vaginas being
that was interesting. We're still going, by the way, but I want to say that it's great that I ended with a Ghostbusters quote, and then the next thing was about stopping the stream. So I will now conclude with, don't cross the streams. Try to imagine every particle in your body simultaneously exploding at the speed of light. Total protonic reversal. Okay, that's bad. Good safety tip, Egon.